All right, well, let's talk about it. I quit wholesaling. So, as a lot of you guys probably already know, I spend a lot of time on this channel talking about my wholesale business, how you can wholesale, close deals, overcome objections, all that good stuff, because it's all things that I've been working on and learning over the past year. But now here I am, and as of this week, I officially have quit wholesaling. So what exactly happened? I'm gonna break down a little bit for you guys why I decided to quit, what led up to this, and maybe a little bit about what my plans are now. So for those of you that don't know, wholesaling in general is going out, finding distressed properties or distressed sellers, getting their house under contract, and then selling that contract to another person. This is a great way to make quick cash. It is a great way to help people, especially in creative finance, where we're solving problems that can't generally be solved with cash and other things like that are maybe your more traditional wholesale. And as most of you probably know, I ran a creative wholesale company, so we focused on subject to and seller finance purchases and combinations of the two so that we could help people that were potentially going into foreclosure or things like that. And we were quite successful. I think we grossed almost around $200,000 in the last 6 months on that wholesale business. That's gross, obviously, altogether, but it did pretty well, right? It was going pretty well. We did have some employees here and there, learned a lot, but let's put it this way. When I started doing the wholesale stuff, I did not intend for it to be something I was gonna do for the rest of my life. In fact, when I started, I didn't wanna do it at all. Reason being, there's a pretty negative stigma around wholesale. Not that I necessarily care what other people think, but I wanted to make sure that I wasn't actually doing what people said other people were doing, right? And that's really hard. That's really hard in wholesale. There's a lot of what I would call like gray area, and I'm not a big fan of gray area. I don't really like to live in the gray area. So that's something that kind of kept me away from wholesale at the start. And the other thing was just that it's not the vision I really had for my life. It's a very intensive business. Even, eventually you can build it into something where you hire employees and all this. But that's pretty different in my personal opinion and my personal experience between creative wholesale and cash wholesale. So that the scalability of those businesses are very different. And for me, what I'm really excited about is buying real estate, traveling, building businesses, numbers, right? I'm a nerd. I was an engineer, doing stuff like that. That's what I'm really interested in. And so the wholesale was basically when I kind of folded to the idea of doing wholesale. What that meant for me was that I was determining this was the next best step in me getting into real estate, meeting the right people, learning. And that absolutely happened. 100% that happened. I was able to meet my partner, amazing partner, and build a business, learn how to hire people, learn how to open up a bunch of bank accounts, learn how to go through contracts, sign things, you name it, right? Negotiate with sellers, talk about it on my YouTube channel. Like, these are all things that I learned through that wholesale company. If I was to go back, I would do exactly what I did. Exactly what I did, because I learned so much. I met so many people. It's the reason why I've gotten into the things that I'm doing today. It's the reason I know the people that I know today. And so wholesale has been amazing. But wholesale is also very difficult. There's a lot of what I would say maybe you could consider unknowns, right? A lot of questions, a lot of reliance on people that you maybe don't want to just have to rely on, right? You want to be able to trust people a little more than just their word, things that may not uphold in a contract, a lot of downside on specific things when it comes to creative finance, wholesale. There's a whole lot to it, and that's stuff that people don't talk about as much. So if you are watching this video and you've been watching maybe my other content and you're looking to get into wholesaling, this is not a video to tell you not to wholesale. I think it's more just my opinion and my video explaining some of the difficulties of wholesale, because quite frankly, there's a lot of people that just post their wins, right? Especially these days, like social media is, look at these big checks, look at these crazy months, look at all these big wins, and it's all just absolute tunnel vision, next big thing, trying to jump on that opportunity. And I want people to approach anything in their life and their business with that vigor, but what I would call also informed pessimism, which if you've seen the videos or seen the topic of kind of the entrepreneurial curve that's going up and down, right? That's kind of that second stage, is the informed pessimism. I don't like the word pessimism, but I do like the word informed. I want people to be informed, and so I want to share my experience having gone through this, because although I did only do it for a little over 6 months, I would say that I have a pretty decent amount of experience doing it, because we closed about 20 transactions, and with that amount of transactions, with that volume, you're going to run into a lot of different things, right? A lot of different things are going to come up and happen as a result of that, a lot of issues that you have to solve and figure out. And so that's kind of what I'm here to share about, is just what happened. Why did I stop wholesaling? And so like I said, number one, most important thing, or at least the first thing that I would bring up, is that it wasn't my intention to wholesale forever. This wasn't something that really excited me. I consider this to be like a stair step or my ladder to the next step. And I believe that it did exactly that. And so that's a huge reason why I decided to stop. Another thing was the consumption of time. So for me, wanting wholesale to be something that was leading to the next thing meant that it couldn't take up all of my time, because especially when you're trying to build businesses and be creative, sometimes it just takes time, like free time, to be able to do that stuff, to be able to create and think and imagine and do all this stuff. And that's not necessarily something that I had doing wholesale. I mean, wholesale, if I was to describe wholesale, once you get into it, 90% of your day is putting out fires. I would wake up, get on my computer, and just start putting out fires until the sun went down. That was my job, and that's pretty much everybody's job, at least when you're getting started, when you haven't been able to hire all of those things out. And so for me, I was spending so much time doing that I didn't have time to chase after these other kind of more forward-thinking passions of mine, the things that got me excited, the things that I wanted to do next. And so that's a huge one, right? It's just the time consumption of wholesale. Another one is, again, like I said, just the lack of trust and ability to trust the people that you're selling these properties to. When it comes to creative finance, there is a huge responsibility in vetting your buyers and especially setting up the sellers and yourself as the wholesaler with protections and contracts and getting everything in place. And from the start, we obviously did not know how to do all that stuff, which is why we hire attorneys and transaction coordinators and people like that do know what they're doing to make sure that it's done correctly. But at the same time, I think there was a limit to what we felt like we could do with that stuff. And that limit, in my opinion, was not enough to necessarily validate doing what we were doing all the time, because of that downside. Because to me, one of the issues was that I felt more and more increasingly that the downsides outweighed the upsides. And I felt that way not just because of our experiences, but more because I'm so blessed to be in a community of people that are also doing a lot of what I'm doing. And I can see them make mistakes. I can learn from those mistakes that they were making so that I can figure out, hey, how can I not do that, right? Whatever that is, I'm gonna try and skip that, because that's the whole point of having a mentor, of having communities, is being able to pay attention and kind of pick those details out and skip the line, right? Skip ahead on that stuff so that you don't have to go through it. And although a whole bunch of my journey so far has been making mistakes and will continue to be making mistakes, it would be stupid for me not to pick those things out and at least recognize that they're a problem. And so that was something that I was starting to pick up on, was just the difficulty with making sure that everything was being done correctly and that I felt as if I was spending my time wisely. And so recently, I had a mastermind in Phoenix with a bunch of good friends, where we were breaking all this down and talking about not only what our businesses look like now, but what we want them to look like in the future. And if you don't have a group of people to do that with, I highly encourage you to find one. You may not be able to do it overnight, but you need to have people that can look with an outside perspective at your business, because the reality is you could be doing the same thing every day, 365 days a year, and it is so incredibly obvious the mistakes that you're making in your business, but you just don't have somebody to look at it. The analogy that I would use is like with a coach, right? Who watching this video has had like a soccer coach or a basketball coach or a baseball coach that was like an old fat person, right? Somebody that's like, you can't do what I'm doing, but yet they're able to stand there and point out exactly what you're doing wrong and how you can fix it, right? That's the analogy I would make. Like, how are they able to do that? Well, it's not necessarily that they are actively doing what you're doing. That's not always the case, although it is helpful, but it's that they did what you're trying to do, and they can now see what you can't see because they're looking at you. They're not actually in it. And so that was what our mastermind was all about, was looking from an outside perspective at our business. And when I was sharing what my businesses were doing, and this is stuff like what I'm doing, how I'm making money, how I'm allocating my time, and then what my goals are, right? Those are all important, and that's, direction and perspective and all those things come into play with that. But when we sat down and looked at it, for me, basically the determination that we made together was that I was spending so much time wholesaling, yet wholesaling really didn't fit in with my vision, my plan. And to share a little bit about what I am working towards this year, one of the big things for me is speaking, doing stuff like this, sharing with audiences, sharing with crowds, speaking on stage, speaking on podcasts. I love sharing. I love trying to lead people and just share share my experiences. And that, again, is very hard to do when you don't have any time. And so that's one of them. Another big one is things like travel, right? And free time and scalability. I brought that up earlier. Like, I love the aspect of business that is scaling and understanding businesses. And that was not something that I wanted to do with wholesale. Somebody's probably watching this video. It's like, you could have scaled the wholesale. Sure, you can scale anything. You can scale a lemonade stand, but it's not what I wanted to do. And so for me, when we looked at it, we said, okay, time allocation is way up here, but it's not even really close to up here on my priority list. And so all of those things played a factor in me quitting wholesale. And so here I am. I am not planning on being a full-time wholesale anymore. You know, if somebody sees me post a wholesale deal a couple months down the road, you don't be like, oh, that guy's a hypocrite. Like, there will probably still be deals that I help people sell or help facilitate or something like that occasionally, but I'm not going to be running a wholesale business at the moment for all those reasons. And I want to be clear with that. Like, everything that I have done up until this point, especially when it comes to the real estate and business side and social media and all this stuff, like, it's very fluid. Maybe I learn new information, change my mind, my perspective changes, my goals change down the road. Totally possible. But right now, that's not the case, right? Right now, I am going to be stopping wholesaling to do other things. And a couple of those things, like I said, is speaking on stages, getting on podcasts, things like that. That's kind of two of my main goals for the year. If you have an in-person podcast, I would love to be on there and talk about my journey so far, my businesses and things like that, because it is what I enjoy. Also, as you guys know, one of my main things right now is my lending business, and I want to lean into that business a little bit more, really get things tightened up, and also focus on teaching more people how to do it, because it is something that has changed my life significantly. And I want to be able to take the time to grow that business, share it with other people, and not have it be bogged down quite as much by the other businesses. Now, another question that you might be thinking is, well, all of those 6 months, you don't want to waste all of that knowledge, right? All of that. No, you're right. I've learned a whole bunch. Creative finance is insane. It's incredible what creative finance can do. And I'm not going to waste all of that, because what I'm doing is, you know, there's kind of two sides, right? Wholesale, buying houses. Both of them involve all of the same stuff, right? Learning how to overcome objections, learning how to talk to sellers, learning how to negotiate, learning how to raise capital. These are all things that I'm going to need either way. And so what I plan on doing, and what I've already started doing, is flipping the script from the wholesale to the buy and hold. And that's what I'm going to be doing. So I actually just went under contract on my first investment property that is out of state via creative finance, via subject to. It's a 3% mortgage that I'm going to be buying or taking over subject to. And that's what I'm going to be doing. And in those conversations, what's so cool about this all is that I feel almost like it's like a graduation. I've graduated maybe from the wholesale into the buying of these houses, because again, all of the same stuff is being used. It's all the same topics, all the same ideas when it comes to all this stuff. And so I still need to learn, or I still need to know how the escrow process works, how to handle different types of loans, especially with creative finance, how to handle that whole transaction and transition and all this fun stuff. That's stuff that I got to learn. And so the great thing is that because I did already learn it, I can go buy these houses and I can be prepared, which was really the goal in the first place, was just to be prepared and understand it. And although I will never stop learning about this stuff, because there is still so much to learn, I've learned enough. And like I said, I've been through 15, 20 transactions now to where I do understand what's going on, and I can now confidently jump into these buy and hold purchases with the right people in place, confidently knowing that I have learned these things and I know how to go about them. And so for those of you that are wondering, or maybe be asking the question like, well, you know, you learned all this stuff, you don't want it to go to waste. Absolutely not. I'm still going to be on my channel talking about seller finance, talking about subject to, talking about overcoming objections, because I'm still going to be doing that stuff. I'm just not going to be selling that to other people to make money. I'm going to be keeping those deals and basically working on making money for myself, making money through appreciation, depreciation, all that good stuff. So that's my little update here on the wholesale. It's just that I'm going to be stopping the wholesale business. I'm going to be continuing to work on it. And if you're still here on this video, I know that everybody has a different approach. And I just want to say this, like I said earlier, for wholesale, it is a very, very good way to get into real estate and make money quick. There are people that make $30,000, $50,000, $100,000 on a wholesale deal. 100% possible. I've seen it so many times. It's not a pipe dream. Like, if you've just seen the ads on your Instagram and YouTube or whatever about it, like, that crap is real. I know so many people that have done that. And that's one of the things that I think keeps people in wholesale, and I think it is very valid. For me personally, I got to a point where that possibility of making the big paychecks and stuff like that was outweighed by the other stuff that I wanted to do. And once it got outweighed for me, it was like, okay, this makes sense, to switch it up and try something different. But for you, if you're just getting started, like talking to agents, bringing people in that know how to close those deals, doing all that fun stuff, like such a good way to make money. Such a good way to make money, get jump started, meet people. Like I said, I would do it all again. Like I would do the same thing that I did when I started getting into wholesale. I would do that exact same thing again. I do not regret a single bit of it. I would copy exactly what I did because I learned so much. And so if you're in that position, like go do that. And also, to be clear, there are so many people that do love the process of building a wholesale business and do love wholesaling, or just freaking love the fact that you can make a ton of money off of it. And that's totally respectable. For me, an interesting thing that I kind of already knew and I've learned more about is that money's just not my motivator with this stuff. Money is important. You need money to survive, absolutely. But the position that we are in right now, money's just not my main motivator. And so when you say, oh, those big paychecks can come in, for me, that just started to get outweighed. That's really what it was. It just got outweighed by the other opportunities. So I'm excited for what's next. I'm excited to continue teaching about how to close deals, how I'm closing deals. I'm excited to be able to walk through properties that I'm buying now instead of just walking you through properties that I sold to other people where they're gonna end up making the majority of the money. That's pretty cool, right? So a lot of good is gonna come from it. I'm super excited about the journey, about all of the possibilities. If you are just getting started with wholesaling, make sure that you consume content and then take action on that stuff. Ask me questions. Throw a comment down there if you have any questions about it, because like I said, I'm gonna continue talking about it, continue making videos because I want to help people get started. One of the things that gets me most excited in the real estate, in the business world so far is not scaling, which I think, that excites me and I think that excites a lot of people that I work with. But I think bar none, the most exciting thing is people realizing that it's possible. And that's what was, if there was one thing keeping me in wholesale, it was helping people get their first deal, make their first dollar. Because that light bulb, that flipping of the switch is what makes you realize this stuff is possible. Like anybody can do this if they put in the time every single day. Anybody can make money in real estate and business. Like you 100% can do this stuff. Totally possible. And that's awesome. I think it's awesome. So stick with it. You're gonna make money if you stick with it. That is a guarantee of mine, and I want to help you along the way with that. So hopefully you enjoyed this video and learned a little bit about where I'm headed next. I'll continue to do my best to keep updates flowing, keep entertaining, and keep providing as much value as I possibly can. But until the next video, I appreciate it.